I'm late. I'm so late. I'm so sorry, you guys. All right, I gotta wait for this to hop up and then do that thing that I always do where I have to leap forward and kill the volume, which I'm ready to do. Hold on. Okay. Oh, wait. Uh-oh. Hold on. I think I screwed up my own sound input. Let me make sure that I can actually hear because I killed the volume on. Yeah, there we go. Output, speakers. I do this really badly. Now I have to check to make sure I can hear. Hold on. All right, there you go. I'm so terrible at this. Tony's the first one in the room, of course. Hello from Montreal. I think you forgot an L there, Tony. How's the temperature there? It's freaking freezing here. Hence me double sweatering, if that's a word. Montreal, thanks for the additional L, Tony. So I did turn my heater off because it's kind of loud. You all don't hear it, but it bugs me. So it's really loud. So I'm just gonna wait for a few more people to come in. It is, I think it got up to like a balmy, I'm gonna check the temp. It got up to maybe, are we in the 20s yet? Every day, yeah. Oh no, oh my God, you guys, it's actually warm outside. It's 40. This is the crazy thing with my house is it takes a while for it to like absorb temperature. So sometimes in the summer it's cooler in here, but now it's been like 9 degrees for so long. My house is still freezing. Patty, how's it in Chicago? My old hometown. That might be a little chilly. Hello from New Mexico. Snowy New Mexico? Mm-hmm. I thought New Mexico was warm. Sorry. Westville, Mass. Oh, Mass. So my part of my family lives in Boston. They got hit with a lot of snow. So that was fun. Warm enough to get a ton of snow tomorrow. Are we getting a ton of snow tomorrow? I didn't even look. Oh, Chicago, it's snowing right now. Oh, Ann Arbor is snowing right now. Oh, and my brother is in Ohio and they're under a storm warning. Oh, fun. Oh yeah, look at that. It is going to snow on Friday. Who knew? Okay, knitting day. Excellent. Oh no, Friday can't be a knitting day. I'm teaching at Webb's all day. I forgot. I'm teaching at the Webb's retreat all weekend. Oh yeah, I forgot. I got to get my class bags ready. Anyone coming to the Webb's retreat this weekend? Am I seeing anybody? Over a foot of snow so far. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, anyway, wow, I totally forgot I was teaching at Webb's. I've been working on the new spring class, which, you know, anytime I release a new video class, I do as a knit along. So this is going to be different. Instead of just one thing, instead of just a sweater, or like the one time I did the lavender cowl, one cowl, it's going to be 3, maybe 4. I just woke up this morning. I thought, oh, I want to add one more accessory. It's going to be 4 brioche accessories, and it's going to be called brioche building blocks. And we're going to start from like the very foundation, and then we're going to dive deep. So we're going to go into different cast-ons and different bind-offs, alternative ways to do decreases, brioche backwards, brioche for combination knitting, one pass brioche, all sorts of fun things. Hello from France. Hello from Oklahoma. 6 inches in the mountains. Awesome. Okay. So sorry I was late. I was late because I was doing what I shouldn't be doing, because I should be saving these conversations for you. But I've been doing such a binge fest on our guests' weekly lives. And I was like so full of things that I wanted to talk to her about, that we started gabbing, and then I was late. So instead, because I have so much I want to talk to her about. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So instead of me gabbing with her off camera, now that you all are here, how about we gab with her on camera? So I'm really excited to chat today with the one and only Fatima from Disturbing the Fleece. And the crowd goes wild. Let's see. Oh, there she is. Hello. Sorry, I have to turn off this thing. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, good. I can't hear you. I screwed up again with my mic. These guys are used to me being like so wildly not professional with the start of these things. Like, because remember when Zoom used to be whatever speakers and mic were chosen on your computer, it was the same as Zoom. And then they split it. So you could choose something on Zoom, but then if I don't remember to set my output speaker here on my computer, this is so boring. Anyway. Hi.
Now you need a degree in sound production to do this.
It was already bad enough because I've always done so much filming, but now with all the teaching live, like I feel like at some point I stopped being a knitwear designer and knitting teacher and started to be like an IT person.
I started being a person who needed an IT person.
Oh my God.
That's not the same.
It's exhausting. You're so much better at the Instagram live though, because your lighting is always really good. I don't know why my lighting is horrible on my Instagram lives. You look exactly like you do right here on your live.
I have a window right here and the sun is over here for the entirety of the year. So this window is always filtered light. And I upped my game a couple weeks ago and have an actual light. So because what was happening is like this side of my face would have beautiful lighting and this side would be in shadow. So I have an extra light as well. So like I have window and a light over here.
See, I think it's something with my phone because I have all my professional lights. I have two big, filming lights. I have my other light over here. And this is my lighting here. But for some reason on my Instagram live, I look like a steaming pile of garbage.
No, that is not true.
It's very much true. Oh, look, I'm so not paying attention to comments. Hold on, I'm going over here. We were just chatting about how 26 in Oklahoma, how freezing it is. Anyway, hi, I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks and I can't believe you did double duty today.
I wanted to be here with you and I wanted to keep my schedule. And so it's fine. There was a big enough space that I got to have a nice lunch and I talked to my dad on the phone and I, got some steps in. So I changed clothes. So if you didn't see me this morning, you don't even know, like this is a totally fresh outfit.
And do you do your Instagram lives every Wednesday?
Yes. Oof. Yes, I started in December, and so I do them on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time.
That's a lot. I started this weekly, but it used to be called Quarantine Live just because when in New York they did the lockdown, we thought we'd be in quarantine for like 6 weeks. So I thought, I'll just turn on the camera once a week and just chat, keep people company. And then, we're going to be 2 years soon. So then I started going monthly because weekly is a lot of work.
I think it doesn't feel like a lot of work to me just because I know the topic before I start. And so I'm not like trying to make up what I'm going to say while it's happening. And
totally what I did.
Yeah, preparation definitely makes it a little bit easier. But also up until this school year, I was a teacher and I had to teach at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I was already teaching on Zoom for the last school year. I did 8 out of the 10 months of school. I was teaching on Zoom. So I've been going live every day, essentially, for like 18 months. So at least now it's only once a week.
What grade?
I taught 7th and 8th grade. The last year I was at school, I taught 7th and 8th grade math, 7th grade science. And then the second semester I taught digital citizenship, which is basically like how not to be terrible on the internet and how not to be catfished.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. So my sister-in-law, she taught fourth grade for many years, and she retired. Her last year was, well, her last year would have been the year before the pandemic. She overlapped just the end. And we used to talk about how things were going to change with educating kids about the internet, because it had just started, like the idea of teaching kids about concepts of like foreverness, things being out there forever and following you, but her interest was more what you said. So her interest was more, her concern rather, I would say, her deep and profound concern was that children wouldn't be able to develop empathy anymore, because if you said something horrible on the playground, you see the kid's face right away. You see them cry, you see them get mad, you see how the other kids maybe gang up. And then you either feel bad about what you just said because you saw the reaction, or you're a terrible person and you feel good. But if it's on the internet, you don't see the reaction. So how do you teach that? How do you do that?
So I had a curriculum that I followed. What is it? There's a company that specifically does media ratings for programming for kids. Wow. I can't remember what's called, like Media Matters or something. And they had a curriculum, and I picked from the curriculum based on current events. Because since I taught middle school there and I was teaching that to middle schoolers, I was privy to, we have a rash of fifth graders cursing in emails. So I could be like, well, let's talk about how your emails are read at school.
Wow.
Or, seventh grade is having a disagreement and it via email, and they're being mean to each other. And so I could be like, let's talk about internet bullying. So
wow.
I picked the lessons based on a lot of what was actually happening to them in that moment, which was great. But part of being a middle schooler is your brain is just learning empathy. You're just developing that part. And so it's great to be able to say, like, because like you said, they're struggling with cause and effect anyway, because the brain is brand new. I like to say it's not fully cooked. So they're already struggling with cause and effect. And so, yeah, they'll send each other a crummy email and I'll be like, hey, so people don't say that to each other. Would you have said that to their face? And they're honest too, because like, they're still young enough to be like, you're not asking me for any particular reason, right? So I'll answer truthfully, only to find out that you actually did ask me for a reason. And they would be like, no, I wouldn't say that in person. And I was like, okay, so then you shouldn't type it.
I mean, it's so basic, but yet adults don't understand that.
It is true, but kids still have in their mind, especially middle schoolers, are still very much trying to please adults, and they're still like trying to figure out who they're going to be when they grow up. And so I don't think my job as a teacher was to make them into anything. It was just to make them a less assholey version of themselves.
Do you think it's because this is I have a theory. Do you think it's about pleasing adults, or do you think it's I feel like kids have a strong sense of justice and right and wrong and what is unfair, because the playground teaches you that about what is unfair. And I think that I think that's why kids are amazing environmentalists. I think that's why kids are at a certain age really stand up for their friends that are, you know, maybe being picked on. And that's why, like, I remember my niece when she was younger, just being like so confused. I think it was, I can't remember what state was just about to, maybe it was Michigan, was talking about ratifying gay marriage. And she was just like so baffled as to why this was an issue. Like she just couldn't wrap her brain around why. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to me because I think
It's
kids
both of
get
those
the
things. I
justice
think it's all
beaten out
those
of them by
things.
adults.
Yeah, but I mean, so yes, kids do have a strong sense of fairness. They have a strong sense of right and wrong, but they also care what adults think. And so sometimes I didn't know that I made the wrong choice, but an adult told me it was the wrong choice, and I actually care about that. So let me make a different choice. I use that language a lot in my classroom. Just make a different choice. You're making a choice here. Is this the one you want to be making? Because sometimes they really just don't know. They're, you know,
Right.
they're doing the best they can with their undercooked brains. But even so, like when talking to them about how to behave on the internet and how it's forever, because I did talk to them about that. We talked about people whose faces become memes. And so I was like, look at this person. You know, this is a person, right? And they were kind of like, well, yeah. And I'm like, no, no, no. Imagine somebody took your baby picture and put words on your face. And now the entire internet knows you as that. And they were like, okay, yeah, that doesn't sound great. And then I showed them the memes where it's somebody who's like crying. And so their face is the crying emoji. And so I said, you know, the crying meme. And so I said, you know, do you want to be the person whose face you're crushed, like tears are running down your face, you're having a terrible day. And now your face is a meme where people are like, I dropped my soda and it's your crying face, you know, or some way to make fun of people. And it's a time that a photo was captured of you and you were having a terrible day. Do you want that? And that was just like something that they hadn't thought about. And we're like, okay, so this is information for me.
Wow. You know, the thing you said about adults, you know, make a different choice. Of course, that cuts both ways. Cause I mean, the idea of adults having that power is also a little, you know, unnerving because of course, the kids with the innate sense of justice and right and wrong, and depending on the house they go home to and what parents that they love say to them. Mm-hmm. That's why I say, you know, kids have an innate sense of justice until it's beaten out of them.
But they have an innate sense of community also. They have an innate sense of inclusion. Like they have to learn to I mean, unless, you know, obviously there are people out there who that's just the life, that's just who they are. But in general, kids have to learn to exclude people. They have to learn to bully people. They have to learn to treat each other poorly. So yeah, there's this, they're also extremely open to being wrong. Like to just accepting, like, yeah, oh, I learned a new thing. Right. And adults are terrible at that. Adults are exhaustingly bad at just
tell me
learning a new thing
for a living. tell me the person who teaches adults for a living something I don't know. I mean, oh yeah, that's totally true. Do you know that there's an old musical, South Pacific, that was pretty shocking in its time because it had a song that was called "You Have to Be Carefully Taught," and it was about how children are not born racists. Yeah, and you know, my mother, it meant so, like my mother didn't know why this musical like really connected with her as a kid, but yeah, you have to be carefully taught. It was so groundbreaking at the time to have a song on Broadway with a, you know, a hero singing about how, you know, this is not, you're not born this way.
Yeah, a thing that I really like about being with children, especially middle schoolers, is they are really honest. And so if a thing that you did isn't, so I talk to adults about this a lot, because I think adults have in their mind that their adultness somehow lends them to being very special. And that's not the case. They do not all the time have the moral high ground. They are not always right. So I talk to adults about it as much as possible, but in my classroom, at least, and in my house, because now I have 2 middle schoolers. So I am living the dream. But, you know, being open to like, oh, I was wrong, or I misspoke, or I forgot. My kids hear that all the time. Listen, I forgot. I'm sorry. Like, I wrote it down, or I'll say I failed to write it down. That's my fault. I'll try to do better the next time.
You know, my nephew's honesty when he was a kid, he's a fully grown man now. It used to be so disconcerting to me because he, you know, when you're an aunt, you can say things that the mom can't. So like he would sometimes be rotten, you know, like just do rotten things. And sometimes to my sister and, you know, to his mom. And I would say to him, like, what, you know, that was a total, I'm going to say a bad word, but I swore at my nephew, because you can when you're an aunt. I said, you know, that was a total dick move, right? Like what you did, that was, why did you do that? You knew that was wrong. And he would say, I don't know. I did know it was wrong. I don't know why I did it. I really don't. And he really didn't.
Nope. I have heard that before. To be a middle school teacher, to be an adult that engages with people from the ages of 10 to 14, is to be a person who's in a constant state of putting aside what happened yesterday.
But you know, you might get letters years from now. My sister-in-law got a letter a couple of years ago out of the blue, and she really wonders what happened to this man that made him write this letter. Did he maybe just have a daughter? Or like, she really wondered. But she got this letter from a man out of the blue who said, you were my 4th grade teacher, you know, a million years ago. He's in his like 30s now. And he said, I hated you at the time. I thought you were so mean. I thought you were unfair to the boys. I thought you constantly picked on the boys. And I remember this one time where we were going to play soccer, and I suggested boys against girls because we would crush them, or I said something, and you said, I want to talk to you after class, and you pulled me aside and you said, I will not tolerate that. I will not tolerate that kind of behavior. And like, I don't remember the exact story, and I'm butchering the story, but he said, I thought you were so unfair to the boys. And now and like in science class, you would always call on the girls first. And I had my hand up every time, and you hardly ever called on me. And then a girl would raise their hand once and you'd call on them. And he said, I used to think you were so unfair, and now I understand. You made me such a good man. And he said, now I understand like why you called on the girls. And I'm butchering the letter. The letter was amazing. But so you don't know what effect you have as a teacher. And if 20 years from now, out of the blue, you're going to get a letter.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. But you know, part of, it's funny that you mentioned that particular thing, because that's a topic that I like to talk about. I have 2 boys. They are 2 cisgender boys. For people who don't know what that means, their gender identity matches the sex they were assigned at birth. They match. So I have 2 boys, for as far as I've been told at this point. And a thing that we talk about a lot, and I'm married, so it's like me, and then I have 3 male persons, is like, I call them out on it, and I call them out for what it is. And so like, if I'm talking and someone starts talking, I'll say, so I noticed that my voice was already happening and you just started talking. So I'm going to need you to wait till I'm done. Or I'll say, I specifically told you. It's funny because my husband's wonderful, but I sometimes I'm like, hey, this particular thing is about to be a learning event for everybody, because I can't have our sons leave our house and do this. And so like, I'll say, no, thanks, I don't need help. And he'll do it anyway. And I'll say, so you completely ignored what I told you my needs were. And he'll be like, you're right. I'm sorry about that. And we do it in front of our sons, because I don't want them to be out there, you know, pushing girls out of the way to be like, I got this.
Right.
But, you know, even with my lives, I definitely have adults in there that I'm like, let me talk to you about how we can engage with other adults in a way that leaves them feeling seen and leaves them feeling treated well. And part of my lives is also understanding that you're going to feel like possibly having to take up less space is an affront, when actually it's just taking up less space. It's going to feel, it can feel bad to be like, well, why don't you want me to speak first? Well, friend, we've heard your voice a lot. And if you actually take a step back, you'll notice we've heard your voice a lot. So yeah, I love that. I look forward to having my students have those realizations, even if they don't send me a letter, although it would be amazing. I look forward to that like moment of like, oh, Fatima wasn't just trying to ignore me. She was trying to let me know that my voice wasn't the only one that mattered.
Right. And I mean, I wish I could remember this guy's letter more, but he talked about math and science, and he talked about understanding that it was harder for the girls to raise their hand, and that she was, you know, oh my God, Farrah quoted I just saw in the chat, you know, the lyrics, she quoted the lyrics. You have to, you have to taught before it's too late, before you're 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You have to be carefully taught. Oh my God, I can't believe you know the lyrics. I could talk about teaching all day, but I'm gonna also talk about knitting, because I'm fascinated by, and also it's very on the tip of my brain right now, because my friend is really struggling with her the school system that her kids are in, and she thinks she has to move because because, you know, it's a huge responsibility to raise good men and women, and there's only
and non-binary people.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's only so much you can do all by yourself, you know, and so she's concerned about the school that her kids are in, and she's concerned about a lot of things. Her school sent a letter declaring that it was, you know, support Back the Blue Day, and all the kids should wear blue. And she simply pointed out that, you know, this is completely tone deaf to do at the beginning of Black History Month. Can we rethink this? And she was brutally and viciously attacked by the other parents in her school. So anyway, it's on the tip of my brain right now, because teachers are they're just so important. The teachers that you have for your kids, it's so important.
Right. It does. It matters a lot, even if they're learning something, even if they're learning what not to do. I mean, that's still part of the learning process. But part of why we are where we are in our state of affairs socially is because we have adults who are opting for comfort instead of opting for truth. And it is not doing anybody any favor.
And it's being written into the laws now. There's also like teachers that are, I don't know if you saw this is all very raw right now. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story the other day, but I was like, mouse is being banned, you know, days before Holocaust Remembrance Day. And then there's laws being passed that teachers can't teach things that might make white children feel uncomfortable. And teachers are, you know, and anyway, I wrote that I had this quote rattling around my head from Christmas Carol, which was, I had to look up the exact quote, but I always remember that in the book where the ghost of Christmas Present, he opens his coat and there's two children clinging to him, these starving clinging. And he says, the girl is want and the boy is ignorance. Fear them both and all they bring, but above all, fear the boy. Because on his brow is written the doom that is, it was written doom unless we rewrite it, unless we learn how to rewrite it. Anyway, yeah, there are teachers that are going to move and leave the only home they've ever known because they can't, that's their calling. Their calling is to teach, and they're being told they can't teach. And they gotta go.
But also, you have a responsibility to give, if you're going to be engaged with children, you have a responsibility to engage with them honestly, because if you're not, you're actively not doing what you said you were going to do. You're actively negatively impacting them. And then what's the point in being with children if you're going to mistreat them? I think, in particular with this idea of Back the Blue, it completely invites the adults and the children to ignore the very real concerns of the Black and brown people in that community.
And I don't think I don't think it was a crazy coincidence that the email went out yesterday. I just don't. I don't think I don't know. Maybe I'm giving too much thought to, I just don't think it's a wacky coincidence.
I don't think that you can give too much thought to the ways that children are impacted and the ways that they are socialized and taught, because what they get is what they give us later. And so yes, it's important to educate adults and it's important for adults to keep learning, but children are literally growing connections in their brain. Like their brain is literally developing. I know,
my mom's an OT. Neural pathways. They're carving new neural pathways.
Right. And so now is the time to give them, to feed them good things, and to feed them truth. And also, if you never have to deal with any adversity, then when you become an adult and you have adversity, what happens? You fold like a cheap suit.
Yep.
They they need to learn how to deal with discomfort and keep going forward.
I'll be honest, I was like a tiny bit judgmental when I first heard this interview with this teacher saying she was going to move. And I was like, but you're not staying to fight. And you're not, but she could be fined $10,000. Like I had to get off my judgmental high horse and know that, first of all, I'm not a teacher. Second of all, I'm not putting myself out there the way, this woman was every day. And she did try, and she wants to teach. And so she's going to go someplace where she can teach. And you could say well, she's abandoning the kids and she's leaving them, but everyone has to do the best they can. And I think,
but even that language of abandoning the kids, there are expectations that women are going to do things selflessly.
I know.
And to their own detriment.
I know.
And teachers are largely female. They're largely women. And so, this expectation that we're doing it for the kids, none of us are going to work because it's altruistic. We're going to work because we need to get paid because it's capitalism. So the idea that, women are supposed to stay in this job and volunteer and work 60 hours and be paid for 30, even that is both white supremacist and it is patriarchal.
I was going to say it's also misogynistic. Yeah, no, I was very aware of that knee-jerk reaction of me not being a grade school teacher in Texas, sitting here thinking how could you just quit? But, anyway, so speaking of money, so first of all, I want to ask you, at what point did you then say, I'm going to make a switch and do this? I'm going to do fiber arts full time. What was that just recently?
Yes. So I was teaching last year, and I got to the end of the first semester and it was time to talk about grades. And our school was really focusing on making sure that kids felt successful because we didn't want them to be feeling bad about themselves on top of being in a pandemic. And what I found was some of our policies were actively benefiting white students in a way that they were not benefiting Black students. And the reply I got was not enough for me. So I got like, I hear what you're saying. I don't think that's what's happening. And I was like, yeah, it's okay that you don't think so, because that's what it is. And I could not continue. I could not say yes to engaging in policies that would benefit white children in a way that they weren't benefiting Black children. I could not, I could not in good conscience engage in such a behavior. And so I got to December and I was like, yep, I'm done. I told my husband, I was like, this is over. This is done. And he said, okay, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I got this little fiber business. I'm just gonna see what I can do. So I finished the school year and I got into the summer and I was like, all right, it's all the stuff that I said I was going to do if I had more time. It's time to start doing that stuff. And so, yeah, I've only actually been doing it full time, literally since like July.
Oh my God, congratulations. It's a big, scary move. I remember when I made the move,
Thank you.
to quit. I used to be a Broadway stage manager and to like say, well, I'm going to have my income drop by like a third and go into knitting. But yeah, so I got to ask you, I'm sure this is the most boring question that everybody asks you, but your brand name, how was it? What did you like struggle and try a million things, or did it hit you like a bolt out of the blue?
So I was just pondering and I had some other thoughts. I had some other ideas. And when Disturbing the Fleece came to me, that was like oh, that's it. It's done. I got it.
And then did you Google being like, oh, this name is too good. Someone else must have taken it, which no one had.
I did look to make sure because I wanted to be the only one.
Right. Because you're like,
I looked on this. Yeah, I looked on Ravelry. I looked on Instagram just to be sure. And so Disturbing the Fleece, when I came to the fiber community, I found that I was the only Black person, like everywhere I went. And it felt a lot like I was kind of swimming upstream. And so when I was thinking of Disturbing the Fleece, I was like, I am standing out in that way because I'm a Black woman, but I'm also standing out because my aesthetic is unique. And my expression of my art is unique. And so I'm Disturbing the Fleece.
And your logo, by the way, I love. Did you design your logo or did you have that designed for you?
My sister drew the first version of it.
I love that little face. Oh my God.
We were talking about what I wanted for my brand, and my sister drew a sheep that had she drew that face and then the whole curly body. And then I worked with a graphic designer and she took out the curly body with individual curls and just made it just the halo that's filled in. And yeah, the face is the face that my sister drew. Yeah.
Oh my God, that face is everything. That face
is the eyebrow is like how you really know.
That face is my inner soul at all times. But I try to put on a different face. But really, that's my face at all times. But oh my God.
That is my perseverance face. Yes. So that's Disturbing the Fleece.
I love that. So now, speaking of your aesthetic, the sweater are you wearing my sweater? The sweater you're going to give me? I'm just kidding. So the drape, I don't know if you got up and back up, can people see you? Because I want to understand the construction of it. So I want you to lift up they are just straight pieces. That's what I was wondering. So the fronts are straight, and then when you drop them, they do that lovely waterfall-y. Oh, freaking love that. And are the cables? So the cables, are those rib?
Yeah, it's mistake rib.
I loves me a mistake rib. And so the cables are, yeah, the cables are ribbed too. See, people are so used to cables being stockinette within a base of reverse stockinette, which is the more, that's like the standard way you see them. But I love when cables just emerge from their fabric base with no change to it. There's just something like
it creates a bunch of movement.
River. Yeah, very organic-y shape.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's literally just straight, and then the collar is picked up and knit after. So the collar is about 2 inches tall.
Oh, yeah. This collar was like, when am I going to finish? But yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely was like, I've knit a lot of rib. The reason I picked mistake rib is because if you ever knit my patterns, and I hope you will, I like to have rest time in there because it gets really tedious, and I don't want that. I want you to be knitting and be able to kind of zone out a little bit. And the good thing about mistake rib is the knit and purl part of this pattern is knit on the wrong side. So on the right side, you just get to knit across the stitches carefree.
Nice.
And so instead of having a wall of purling, so you have knit and purl on the wrong side, and on the right side, you just get to knit and live your relaxing dreams.
That's where the cocktails and TV come in. And what's the pattern called?
It's called waffla. I see some people talking about it in the chat. Thanks.
I was going to say, and apparently there's a KL. There's a Cal in March. I'm reading in the chat. Says Kelsey.
Listen, people, I tell you, every time I go live, I get volunteered for something. They crack me up. So yes, I had I was just.
Wait,
I got volunteered.
Do you have a Cal in March, or is Kelsey just declaring that you should?
No, it's in March because they already declared it like a week ago.
So you're saying like you were just sitting here minding your own business and people in chat are like, we're having a Cal. And you're like, really? Am I?
That's what happened. I was talking
yes, I'm having
to
a Cal.
Shoba of Serendipitous Wool. She was like, oh yeah, your waffle, it's beautiful. And I was like, thanks, whatever. And somebody said, we should have a knit along. And I was like, I don't think we really need to do that. And they were like, yeah, we're having a knit along. And I was like, what's happening? And then we have like a date pick. And I was like, this is some bull. So
they're like, we're having it. You can come or not, but we're having it. Not about you, lady, about us. We're having it.
So I was voluntold that we're having a knit along for Waffla. It starts.
Did you just say
it starts on March the 1st?
Wait, back up. Did you just say you were voluntold?
Yes.
Oh my God, I've never heard that.
Really? Yes, that happens to me in my lives a lot, is I get voluntold. Yes, that is what happens.
Kelsey just typed she may have been voluntold.
It's true. It's true. But that's okay because I also brought other people into it. I was like, well, since we're here, so I voluntold one of my male followers that he was going to make it too, because I was like, my designs are for everybody. They're for every gender. And I was like, I need a man to knit it. And so that's you. And he was like, okay. So now we're all in it together.
I freaking love voluntold. I can't even tell you. Oh my God. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because my live folks are used to this conversation. I had a long conversation. Like I said, whatever comes up in the world is often what we're talking about. And I remember when Kate Atherley was right when there was this giant discussion on the internet about well, two things. One was yarn substitution, that designers should. I had this soapbox thing of like, y'all can't have everything. You can't tell a designer you should have your garment test knit in every size. You should pay your test knitters. You should have it knit out of 4 different yarns. Don't charge us more than $7 for a pattern though. I'm like, let's discuss that math. let's dig into that a little, shall we? So anyway, Kate Atherley was on when that all came up. But a couple of days ago, I wanted to talk to you about custom knits, because a couple of days ago, I got an email from someone, and I don't do custom knits. And I wish I had known, this was like last week, that you had done it at this time, because I would have passed this on to you. Actually, I still have the email, so I still will. But she had a store-bought sweater coat. So coat. So that means, a lot of knitting, right? And she said, I want to have it recreated. Do you do that? And I said, I don't do it. You maybe go to a local yarn store, see if they do custom knits. And I said, but I do want to warn you what that might cost. So you're talking about reverse engineering a pattern, getting your measurements, picking out the yarn, swatching for it, writing a pattern, and then knitting a coat. So I said, that could be in the range of 500. And she was like, oh,
and that doesn't include the cost of the yarn.
Thank you. And I said, and then I sent her another email. I was like, P.S. sorry, I don't mean that doesn't include materials. So A, how did you get started with custom knits? And then B, how do you set the expectations so that you don't get, because this was a learning curve for me when I was first working in a yarn store, and someone would come in and they would ask for a custom knit, and we would go through the work it takes to bid it, which is someone in the shop would find the yarn and swatch it and time themselves and figure it out and then make a bid. And then all that's work, and then be told like, oh, that's way too expensive. So then I had to figure out, okay, how do I set basic expectations so I'm not wasting? So how do you do that? How do you deal with that?
So your first question about how I got into it.
Yeah.
I first started off making things for my family. And I was one of those knitters that once I learned to knit, I wanted to knit things for everybody. And so I was knitting things and giving things away, and that was fine. And then people were making requests, and that was also like, okay, and part of how I got into designing is my family and I went to SAF, which is the Southeastern Animal Fiber Festival in Asheville.
Yeah, that's a bucket list.
And my family was wearing their hand knits and were being, my husband tells it like they were being accosted. I don't think it was quite as serious, but he's an introvert. And so I think more than 2 people commenting on his hat was way too much. But he said, you have to sell these. And I was like, okay. So I started knitting individual hats and selling them right then. And I started Hand Knit by Fatima. I would go to festivals in the winter only because that's the only place I knew that you could sell them. And I would sell, hats that I had made. And then as I got,
oh God, sorry, oh my God. Keep talking to people while I run downstairs and get my plug. I can't believe I didn't bring my plug up, and I just got a low battery alert. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed.
Okay. I'll keep talking.
I'll be right back.
So I was, I'll talk to you all. We're here together. So I was selling hats that I made. And for a while, I was just making the same hat over and over again, just in different colors. Which if you've seen any of my work, I can't make 2 things the same. I do try. Even a pair of socks are not the same, whether it's slightly shorter or slightly longer. I don't know. I think it's my problem with authority. Anyway, so I got into making custom knits because I was making hats and all of the hats were different, and that was fun. And then I started making bigger items. And the culmination of my knitting, of my knitting experience to date is I knit my sister's wedding dress.
What? Sorry.
Yeah, yes, I knit it in a wool and merino and silk blend. I beaded it by hand. So I did the beads where you use the tiny crochet hook, that method. And I said, oh, if you want to buy your wedding dress, that's fine. But I also want to offer, if you would be interested, I'll make your wedding dress. And she was like, oh, that sounds awesome. And I started drawing sketches. And she was like, that's fine. That's fine. And I was like, dude, I can't do fine. Like, either it's the thing you want or it's not. So she drew her own. So she drew a picture of what she wanted her wedding dress to be. And then I turned it into a yarn and beaded version of her drawing. It is a floor length fitted gown. The yarn was hand dyed.
So from design to finish, like what length of time are you talking?
It was 10 months.
Oh my God.
I wanted 12, but it took her, like I said, a couple of months to just be like, none of the things you drew are actually what I wanted. And I was like, we got to know, like, we got to do, like, I need to know what you want. And so she drew it. And I was like, that's not at all what you said you wanted, but okay, we can do that. It was completely, I couldn't believe it. It was a completely different era of time.
Oh my God, this is killing me.
It was bananas. Anyway, so I designed it, I knit it. So one of the things that I talk about a lot is part of my design ethos is that I frog at the drop of a hat. I'll just be like, that's not working. So the most challenging frogging of my knitting life is I knit
Don't
the
say
train.
beaded mohair. Don't say beaded
train.
mohair. Don't say beaded mohair. I'm gonna cry.
It wasn't mohair. I'm allergic to mohair. I wouldn't have picked that. But the train was basically increases that you would do for a shawl, so that the lace pattern, because the train was a different lace pattern than the rest of the dress. That dress is on my Instagram. It is also on my Facebook page, which is hand knit by Fatima. It is for Instagram, you'll have to scroll down a little bit to find it. But yeah, so I started the increases for the train, and they were supposed to happen at exactly the center of the rear, right? I was knitting and minding my own business, and I kept saying, how do I keep getting to the side seam faster on the left than it is on the right? Oh, no. And I kept knitting and wondering and knitting and wondering. And then I counted from a different place, and I was like, oh shit. So I had knit approximately 6 beaded lace inches, in which the train was not in the center of the back. So it had to be put down for a couple of weeks while I asked the cosmos for strength.
By the way, put down also sounds like, you had it killed.
No, I stuffed that sucker in a bag and I pushed it.
Just like what you say about a pet that's, has like cancer. We had to put it down.
A timeout. And so once I was ready, I pulled the dress back out. I took the needles out because you can't tink that. I put a piece of cardboard. I took a cardboard box and I cut it open so it would lay flat. And I took it and I ripped it. And so it was like tick, 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 with beads falling out on the cardboard. And so I had to do 6 inches of frogging beaded lace for my sister's wedding dress. And then it went back on the needles, and I was like, all right, it's done now. Let's go. So I had to go forward again. But yes.
Yeah, you can't fear the frog. You gotta embrace it.
Right. There was nothing to be done. I was like, what if I just put a applique on it? Like, what if I call it a design element that is like an off-center train? Listen, I had so much self-talk, y'all. And then I was like, you're just wasting time. I
know. I have so many pictures of the sweater over here, the Volition, the cardigan version. And can't you always like see yourself exactly where you were when you did it? Like when you frog, I can always see, like first of all, it's this beautiful, like soft wool, but I was on a bus when I frogged this. I was on a bus heading to Selma. We were heading to the bridge, and it was 1,000 degrees. It was in the middle of a heat wave. We did this whole trip. We did Atlanta. We started in Atlanta. This was 2019. Do you remember the heat wave? So we started in Atlanta, and then we did Montgomery, and we did and it was 100-something degrees. And I'm sitting on a bus, and the shaping I knew it just was not like I design everything mathematically. I don't design on the needles. Sometimes you mathematically design everything, particularly with like short rows and shaping, and you do it and it's not working out. And I ripped like it was a top down from the join, down, sitting on that bus. And with a bunch of singers who have no idea what I'm doing. I was the only,
But it looks bad. Even though they don't know what you're doing, it looks bad.
Yeah, they knew they
all right, can you see? That's it.
Oh my God. Yeah, I haven't scrolled far enough because I'm still on Instagram. I still haven't hit it. Oh my God. Although I did hit a sweater that I saw you wore on one of the lives, but and it was one that you wore on when you were talking about your custom knits. It was a green and white sweater that you wore pretty recently. And I scrolled down to where you were working on it. I love that sweater too, that green and white one. You wore it recently when you were talking about your custom knits, but I don't know what it's called.
Oh, are you talking about Modcast?
It goes goes straight across.
Yeah, that's Modcast. Yes.
V-neck. That's really cute. Is that one yours too?
Oh wait, no, you said it goes straight across. Oh,
no, the color blocking does. It's a V-neck.
Oh, that one is dichromatic tee. It's short sleeve.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, okay, that's dichromatic tee. Yes, yeah.
I would wear the shit out of that.
It's really easy to wear. I like it very much.
I'd wear that.
That one actually is for sale.
Oh, really? I'd wear that like every day.
Yeah, once I knit it, I was like, and that's it. So, because I started off with a teal and white one. I got yarn as a gift, and I knit a sweater that didn't work, and I frogged it, and then I knit a t-shirt, and I was like, this is amazing. I'll write the pattern. And I got yarn support for it. I made it, and then I was like, all right, I do not need a second one of these. So yeah, it's on my Etsy page now. You can buy that actual sweater.
It is really cute. So how do you, oh yeah, here you are. This is the video I was talking about that I saw you wearing it.
Yes.
So how do you set expectations then for pricing? Because that's so complicated.
I think it's easier because I've done design work for publications. So I have in my mind how much a publication is going to pay me to knit something. And so I can start from that point and then add in like materials, because the publication always provides the materials.
Oh, I didn't mean how do you set your prices? I know you know how to price yourself. How do you how do you get across to the buyer like what we're talking about? This isn't like going to Target and buying a hand knit.
Well, part of how I do that is on my Etsy page, there are finished items there. Oh, so if you already know a finished hat is $65, then you can assume that a custom version of it is at least $65.
Oh, that's
so
true.
The finished version of that sweater, I think, is $300. So you already know that this sweater costs this much. So if I'm going to do anything different, I have that starting point. So that's really helpful. So, I have had people who have asked me, I got a picture, somebody sent a picture and was like, can you knit this? And I was like, well, yes, it's physically possible, but that's not something that I would make. So if you wanted to talk about something I would make, then I'm happy to do that. And they never replied. It's fine. It's no big deal. But I can start the conversation with, it's going to cost about this much. Here are the things that I do. And let me know if you have any further questions for me.
Yeah. So you've got some examples. That's true. That's a good point. Because it's really hard when someone's coming in cold and they don't have examples. No one understands the time. And the thing with the other element, like what you said about teachers it's so female dominated, and so the sort of expectation of like, oh, you should do X, Y, and Z, you should sacrifice. I have that issue with pricing conversations when it comes to our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the knitter doesn't think of it that way, that when they're talking about, oh, price inclusivity, you should lower your prices so that, everyone should knit. My thing is, I don't see this conversation happening in other industries that are male dominated. So what happens is you're asking a female dominated industry to have that guilt of feeling like we're being bad people, we're not serving the majority of people, and therefore we need to feel shame for being asked to be paid for our work. And I got feels about that. You know what I mean?
But I'll even go a step further than that, in that women are paid less on the dollar in the US than men are. And women of color are paid even less on the dollar. So like, when I'm hearing that, I'm like, so you want a Black woman who already is being paid less on the dollar and has been for my entire working career to also take on my shoulders that my patterns should be accessible to everybody. I think that not only is it unfair, but I think in some ways it's white supremacist. And it is patriarchal / misogyny as well. Like, if my product isn't available to you due to your finances, that is not my thing to solve on your behalf. I'm not saying that I don't care, because I definitely do care, but I'm already being underpaid for my work. I've always been underpaid for my work, and I'm not a monopoly. So you won't miss out on knitting a sweater if it's not a Disturbing the Fleece sweater. There is a huge body of free knitting patterns out there.
Right. Have you ever had people email you, oh, I love X, Y, and Z pattern of yours. Do you know, is there like a free version of that on the internet? Like, I have gotten those emails. Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
But my patterns have been put on some of those sites. And there was it's funny that we're talking about women being properly compensated for their work. There was a subscription box that was run by white men, probably 5 years ago at this point. And what they were doing was they would buy one copy of your pattern.
Oh no.
And then give away PDFs of your pattern to all of their subscribers. So they bought one of my sock pattern. And the thing about it is, if you look into their story, these two white men were like, the craft industry could use this insight, and, we're solving a problem, whatever. And basically, we're just stealing artists' work.
I was going to say, you're solving a problem by stealing?
Yes. Okay. Apparently, they thought all we needed was men to come and help us out. And now that the men are here, we're going to steal your stuff. And so I sent them once I was informed that my pattern was included, I sent them a message, and they would not tell me how many copies they had given away. And the people who got the pattern for free had the audacity to be like, well, we paid for the subscription box. Who's going to take care of our loss by not having access to your pattern? And it's like, are you kidding?
Probably the company that you paid.
You paid. What? So you want me to give you something for free because you paid him?
Right, you paid? You could have gone on a limb and say, the guy you bought the subscription from is going to make it right.
Right. You paid these two white men for my stuff, and now you're mad I'm not going to give it to you for free? No, ma'am. Nope, absolutely not. It was terrible. But their solution to, I don't even know what they said they were solving, but yeah, they just took my pattern and they gave people the PDF. And so today, I don't know how many of my pattern got given away for free. Wow. they just basically did not reply. And I said, I get the impression that you have about 250 boxes. Somebody else told me that. And I was like, so you owe me this much money. They gave me the amount, the wholesale cost for it. And then that was it. I never saw them or heard from them again.
Wow. You know, I used to work in yarn stores, and people would come in, and in New York City, and there was another yarn shop that is now closed. And people would look at a book and say, oh, can I, how much do you charge to sell, a copy of that pattern? And I'd say, well, those aren't standalone, because this was back in the day where there were standalone paper copies. This was so long ago, where you'd sell an individual. And I'd say, no, that only comes in the book. And they'd say, oh, but so-and-so, it was on Union Square, so it's closed. The so-and-so yarn shop, they'll sell a copy. So they had a Xerox machine in their yarn store, and they would Xerox out of the book and sell for $1 a page. And I'd say, oh, do you like this designer? Oh, I love her. I love her work. I love her. He said, oh, you love her. That's great. Because, every time you do that, you're stealing from her. No, she's already been paid for the book. I'm like, no. Designers are paid royalties based on the book sales. So you love her. You love her. That's so great. You love her. Pay her.
Yeah. And that dollar you're paying isn't even going to her. No. It's going to the yarn shop that will be paid again when somebody buys the dang book.
Yeah. This, and the whole conversation, the price inclusivity and the yarn sub conversation were really connected, because it really hit yarn dyers. They got a double punch. Like, yes, it affected designers, but yarn dyers, indie dyers that are, paying their staff a decent wage, paying health benefits. Some of the larger companies, larger yarn companies that have 2 employees. Isn't that hilarious? That I would, but I mean, there's indie dyers that is just them, like Lindsay Vega was on the channel. She was my keynote speaker for Affinity last year, and it's just her. She's a one person show. But then there's like Anzula that has a couple of full-time employees. She pays full benefits, health insurance. It's all American dyed, American, someone's got to pay for that. So the other thing about the judgment is, I say, like, there shouldn't be a judgment on either side. If you have the money to knit a $500 sweater out of cashmere, can we not shame that person? Because they might have saved up all year for that treat for themselves, right? On the other hand, if you buy yarn from a big box store and it's 100% acrylic, but you love to knit, and that's what's accessible to you right now, can we not shame that person? I'm just, maybe stop it in both directions. But know that there's a trade-off for every decision we make in life.
Right.
So there are so I'm not shaming someone who's wants to knit, and the only yarn accessible to them right now is 100% acrylic made in China in a big box store. But know that there's a trade for that. The price is from child labor. It's from, a lot of times people of color not being paid very well.
It's not environmentally friendly. Acrylic won't break down. It's not biodegradable. It'll be here. Acrylic is essentially yarn made of plastic. So it's not going to break down when it gets thrown away. Now, it is also indestructible. Right. You'll have that acrylic thing until the nuclear holocaust.
Right.
But it is not environmentally friendly. So a cotton or a wool will break down over time. Like, eventually with elements, it'll just biodegrade. So there's an environmental trade-off as well.
Yeah. And there's just, we make decisions in our life and there are consequences to those decisions, and there should be thought behind those decisions. So my whole thing about like just this conversation that happened on Instagram that was just painted with this big broad brush of like everything should cost X or lower, or no one should charge this. It's just a wildly not nuanced conversation that also put every problem of the world on the backs of women, which I didn't solve, which I didn't really enjoy.
Right. I commented on it as well. I did a post about it as well, because I too was like, you all are asking for a level of altruism that is completely inappropriate, but also your expectations are unreasonable. Is not even the word. They're astronomical.
Right.
So the pattern shouldn't be over $8. Okay. The pattern should also include every size for every human that might even possibly consider making it. So there are some patterns
and be
that
test knit in every size and pay those test knitters.
Right. So there are some patterns that are written for size for a 78-inch bust / chest all the way up to a 72. Okay. The idea that you feel like there are people who should have enough expertise to write a pattern for a garment that has a 40-inch range is completely unacceptable.
This bad boy came in 10 sizes. Do you know how complicated this sweater was? This took me a year. This was a year of my life, this design process, because it was so complicated. The built-in pockets that go with the cable and 10 sizes. And it's
right.
You know,
and I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, but I'm saying you should be respectful of the fact that this is extra work for them. And I've seen some people say like, well, you should design for everybody, and so it's not my problem that it's extra work for you. Okay, but here's the thing though. Everything isn't for everybody, nor should everything be for everybody. Not because there's something wrong with your body, but because my expertise doesn't cover everything. I would not go into a high school classroom and be like, you need to be able to teach kindergartners to read.
Or like the thing I always say is, can you imagine someone going into a pro shop? Because I always use I know it's a stereotype, but you got to go for the classic white man example, golf. Someone going, because I know it's sexist, but there you go. Someone's go into a pro shop and buy a set of clubs, and then come back the next week to say, well, I want a free lesson from a golf master. Well, we can't do that. That you got to pay for that. No, I bought the clubs here. I want lifetime support and knowledge. I want you to just continue to give me. No, people would say, well, that's ridiculous. Those people have to get paid for their work.
But there's also the idea that if you bought those clubs, I want to pay for the cheapest clubs, but I want you to give me the nicest clubs, because it's unfair that some people are getting nice clubs.
Right. That's true.
Like, dude, or I want to get clubs that are for left-handed people. I'm a lefty. Half of us are lefty. But I want clubs that are for lefties, but I want them to be the same price as the clubs for righties, even though there are different products. I want it to cost the same. And it's really an unfair ask. It's so much extra work, but so appreciated by us fluffy girls. Thank you, Chris Lopez. But what I would say is, are they doing it well?
Yeah.
So are they just adding 10 miles of stockinette, or are they doing like you did, where it's like, no, every size has a cable that works on the pocket?
Yeah.
It's not just about quantity, it's about quality.
Yeah. And I mean, there are older patterns of mine that are in the queue to be rewritten because I learned more, and I used to use CYC sizing guidelines, which, there's an old saying, when three people tell you you're drunk, lie down. So, when you get a bunch of knitters who are knitting one size, certain size, and they say like, oh, can you help us with adjusting for the upper arm, like this is the right high chest measurement for me, it's the right armhole depth, but the upper arm's too small. Then you might go, maybe the upper arm measurement's not right, right? So there are some older patterns that I use CYC guidelines, and I don't think the upper arm measurements for CYC is correct for size 40 and up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the cross.
And they only go up to 62.
Yeah. So there's a couple that are in my queue to rewrite, because we learn things too. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a designer that said that she uses the sizing in it's a sewing website. The ASTM standards.
Oh, no, that's not sewing. That's so I use their guidelines sometimes for certain things, because they have measurements for like all sorts of little areas that aren't, like the measurement from here to here. It's standard measurements for anything in the world. So you can buy their sizing charts for nuts and bolts, for chairs, for bodies.
That's kind of awesome, actually.
But you have to buy multiples, because they don't have one that goes from, like, you'll buy the range from like the 27-inch chest to this, and then you have to buy another one.
Yeah, and then you have to buy another one, and like
three.
That is an additional cost.
Oh yeah,
so
they're
we're talking about
time,
right? And they're not cheap, and
no.
It's not your problem to pay for me to buy sizing standards, but I'm one person, I'm doing the best I can, and CYC is free. So like, and arguably you're getting what you pay for. Like, they're just okay.
Yeah.
But I think that part of the conversation is, like you said, we're asking women to do more free labor. We're setting expectations that are unreasonable. But I think we're also using this opportunity to make statements that we wouldn't have made before, that we haven't made before. So like, you can access a designer on Instagram and you can send them a message and be like, why don't your sizes go up to 72 inch? Okay. But can you walk into Target and do the same thing? No.
Right. I always say, like, no one's like, when I used to work in a yarn store and people would bang on the window when I was closing and go, like, please, can I come in? And I'd say, no one's ever banging on the window of the Gap when it's closed. Going,
right.
I just need to, just let me in. I just need to buy one pair of jeans. But like,
right. Right. But also I like to say, that saying, don't trust the skinny cook. I think that you should take with a grain of salt having someone whose body type is completely different than yours designing clothes for you. I think that you should be questioning their skill and their effectiveness at it. So yes, I can use the numbers. I personally actually asked my friends that are plus size people, like, hey, does this arm measurement make sense? Could this fit around your arm? Does this neck make sense? Like, I just was out there asking them because I had heard that people weren't doing a good job. Yeah. But I think that I question the wisdom of expecting somebody who has a 34-inch chest to do a good job of designing a 72-inch chest. I'm not saying nobody can do it, but don't trust the skinny cook. Don't trust the bald hairdresser. Like, I could do this all day.
I mean, I think it's more an issue of putting in the work, because it's something that, and it comes back to, what are you going to pay for? There's a lot of like anecdotal feedback that has come from doing this for 2007. I started in 2007 doing this full time. So however many years that is.
That's 14. My son was born in 2007, my oldest. So that's the only reason I have that number at the ready.
And I started running sweater knit-alongs. I think Corcoran was like 7 or 8 years ago. And it's from feedback from knitters that you build your own, grading scale. So over the years, I've built my own grading scale where I'm like, like that pattern had more successfully knit finished objects of this size or up, where people aren't saying in the mods, and I did this and I did this and I did this. And then the earlier designs, you're like reading those Ravelry mods and going, oh, okay, a lot of people are adjusting the upper arm measurement, right? But maybe my upper arm measurement isn't right. Oh, let's look at that, But
for sure, but you have to have people who are willing to even try your pattern. That's another barrier that I have found is, so my patterns have always been to at least a 48. And I switched to going to Disturbing the Fleece as a brand has committed to always having at least up to a 50-inch bust chest, because bust is gendered. I think my clothes are for everybody, so I say chest. Anyway, so as a brand, everything is graded up to at least the 50-inch. That has been the case for the entire time that I've been designing. Right. I have exactly one thing that is up to a 48. I'm very afraid of it. I have not circled back.
But I worked my way up there over the years. I mean, I don't think earlier, because I came from magazines. So I started my
where
design
it's like
work,
38, 40 at the most.
Yeah. They would often pay you for 4 sizes.
Time. Right. And they're like,
Back
good luck and Godspeed. But I've been doing it the whole time. But if people aren't knitting my design, then I'm not getting that feedback. But there's multiple reasons for that. I'm not getting the exposure that my white counterparts are. And I think that that's important to note. But also, people feel like they're taking a risk when they are working with a designer that's not a white woman. And
or that the first thing you said about you're not getting the exposure, it becomes a vicious circle, of course.
Right, but both are true. I've had people who knit my design perfectly successfully and said, buyer beware, this pattern is terrible. And I'm like, yours looks like the picture. So I'm confused about what exactly it is you're upset about. I'm not getting reviews. People will knit it and it'll look beautiful and they won't give me a good review. Or they'll give me 3 out of the 5 stars, but they won't say why.
Oh, like on Ravelry, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
and so like I'm being judged more harshly than my white counterparts. But knitting a garment that has 50 inches of chest or 60 inches or 70 inches even is a significantly larger time and yarn commitment, which I absolutely understand and respect. So on one hand, maybe you didn't knit it because you're like, I can't risk working on this for 6 months for it not to fit. But there's also that other stuff that I mentioned first about just not getting the same exposure as a Black designer and also not getting the same extension of good faith, the same like respect as my white counterparts. The last thing I'll say at this exact moment is I think a thing that I've been working on is if you are a person who wants to knit above a 50 in my pattern, if you just want to know what my measurements are, you can message me and I will tell you. So if you don't want to start knitting until you know that my upper arm is something that'll work for you, send me a message and I will open my Excel spreadsheet and I will tell you, I have the upper arm measurement as this. So if you get to gauge, your upper arm will be this, your collar will be this, the length of the sweater will be this. And so if you need that information to decide if you want to knit my garment, send me a message and I will do it. I will go to that spreadsheet right now because really I know it's a risk.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I had this conversation with Kate and I'm really torn about it. Kate was saying, although I called her on it because one of her sweaters doesn't have this. Kate was saying she thinks that one of the photos on Ravelry should be your schematic. And I was like, but the schematic is in great part the design. That's like a lot of information to give for free. So your approach makes more sense because you're not saying, I'm just going to publish my schematic and then boom, you can see all my measurements. You're saying, if you have a question about a particular measurement, just ask me. Do you put that in the notes for all your the description on Rav for every pattern?
I don't, but I'm gonna make a note to do that because I explain it in my lives all the time. But I'm gonna make a note to do that.
You should put that in the description of all your sweaters, because I think a lot of people would take you up on that. That's really interesting. That's a really smart way to approach that. Oh my God, it's 3:27. I'm so sorry. I can't believe we talked this long.
No, it's fine.
That time totally got away from me. I could talk to you all day. I have so much to talk to you about.
We still have people in the chat at least, so that's good. It's not just me.
Oh, you guys, you're the best. Oh yeah, Chris is like, not only violating copyright laws. Latoya said the audacity. Yes, is very much violating copyright laws, but all my folks are so smart. You guys are also smart. Okay, so we babbled for like an hour and a half. So do me a favor. Tell me the name of the sweater again that you're wearing.
This is called Wafla, WAFLA.
And I'm going to
put sized. It is sized from 31.5 to 64. I originally went to 56 this was first published on Twist. And so I went to 56 and then I was like, I'm republishing, I'm going to 60. And then I did a Hail Mary in the last days before I posted it. And I was like, you know what? I can get to 64. I just need a little more time. So now it goes from 31.5 to 64.
Can I tell you how bizarre that is? That this sweater, I think it was this one. I'm trying to remember maybe it was this one. I can't remember. One of my sweaters stopped at 60, but it might've been Affinity, but because it's it's unisex, it's for everyone. My friend Melissa Liebman's like, no, you got to go to 64. I'm like, I need another size. She's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, there were people who were like, yay, it's 64. And I was like, come on, man, I cannot make everything to 64. The thing with a drop shoulder is it's not fitted. Right. It's relaxed. So I can basically keep bringing more space here and I can keep making the armhole. And the great thing about drop shoulder, if you all don't know, is since the fronts are knit and then the sleeves are picked up, if your sleeves are usually too wide, you just knit it a little shorter. And if your sleeves are a little too tight, then you just knit this section a little longer and you'll have more space for your upper arm or less space, whatever you need. And the same thing with length. So like, if the body is usually too short for you, it's easy for you to add length that way. So a drop shoulder is different than a fitted garment. It's definitely harder and requires more skill.
Can I tell you one other thing that I thought was really, do you know who Carol Feller is? She's okay. So she, such a generous, lovely woman who many, many, many years ago at TNNA, when she had a booth for her yarn, I went up and I introduced myself and I asked her, like, how do you run a knit along for a sweater? Because back then everything was mystery knit alongs. Mm-hmm. And you can't have a sweater be a mystery knit along. And she was so generous and she gave me all this information and before I did my first thing. But she said, and something she always did was she included a 1-page like tip sheet. Now I ended up approaching my knit alongs different. I just made them video sweater classes because it's just my thing. But the 1-page tip sheet, like everything you just said, right? So the pattern, so you're not spoon feeding people, you're giving them the tools they need to adjust it. And I just thought that was like a great little tip. I thought that was a really interesting thing. And that's just included with the pattern to be like everything you just said.
I actually have done a couple types of knit along. The first one I did was called an adventure knit along. It was super fun and totally, it's funny because when I came up with the idea, I had a friend whom I love who is less risk averse than I am in this way. And she was like, this is not going to work. And I was like, no, I'm going to tell people that we might have to tink back if it doesn't work.
Ooh, snap.
So we're going to do it together. So I drew a sketch and I was like, this is what we're going for. We'll see what happens. And I was like, I want people to do it with me who are different chests. I want different genders. I want everybody to knit it. And I posted the instructions on Instagram. So it's called the Adventure Tank. And so I was like, left strap, typed in Instagram, boom. Right strap, typed in Instagram. It was wild, but it was super fun. So many people did it. And we only had to tink back, I think, one time.
For like, you're blowing my mind. The idea of saying to people like, take back. It's not the end of the world.
We're trying to get to my vision. We'll see what happens.
So do you mean like you were doing it? You were my brain is breaking. Are you saying you were designing it like as people were knitting it?
Yes.
Holy
I had an idea.
God.
I had an idea in mind. I had knit a sample that was similar. And I was like, I'm going to write this pattern, but it has neck shaping and it has shoulder shaping. And I was like, okay, I can guess what this should be, but I'm not sure it's going to work. So I was like, I'm going to write it down. Y'all try it. And if it doesn't work, then we know we got to tink back, which didn't happen. People were like, works great.
So you know what you did? You invented what that seems like is you took a knit along and a test knit and married them into a group test knit along.
Mm-hmm. I called it Adventure Knit Along. And so while we were knitting, when it was time to join the straps, one of the people said that when she did her cast on across the chest, that it was too wide. And I was like, interesting, mine worked great. And so she said, everybody else may need to go down a needle size just for the cast on. And I was like, noted. So I put it in there. You might have to go down a needle size for cast on right there.
See, that's another thing in one of my really early yoke designs for a magazine. The neck width, I'm following guidelines from Ann Budd and other. It is way too wide for the upper sizes. So there was another live and learn for me.
Yeah, no. And so, but I also, so that there was very little risk, I put the instructions in Instagram. You could go get them right now. You just have to scroll way down. It's like 2 years ago. And so it literally said left strap instructions, and typed in the text were the instructions for all 12 sizes.
Oh, you've blown my mind.
And I said, you have the option to pay me for it while we're working. If you buy it for $1, then I'll send you a PDF with that instruction so you don't have to read it on your phone.
Shut up.
So people did that. And if you paid the $1 when it was done, I sent you an update of the full pattern.
How did you think of this? This is nuts.
I was literally like, I want people to tell me what they think while they're working. I literally want to know if this is working the way I think it's working. And the way to do that was to get people to do it. Also, we talked about accessibility, and I wanted people to feel like there was no risk in trying it. You didn't have to spend any money. Could you spend the $1 and get it printed? Sure, but you didn't have to. So it got really close to the sketch, but it didn't get all the way to the sketch, because when I got to knitting the back, I was like, these instructions are going to be too hard. I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. And so I didn't do that design element on the upper back that I had planned to do. And it worked out just fine. People knit it. They posted updates. It took us forever because it was dang fingering. Oh gosh. But
I thought this was the right note. I was going to say no one would ever know if they got close to my sketch because I can't draw. So, oh wait, no, this is the right notebook. So here's my sketch for Affinity. This is like literally how I work things out. So I mean, I can't draw at all. That's my Affinity sketch. So is that close?
Sketch from me.
Yeah, see, you're like a grown-up who knows how to draw.
I don't know when that happened to me. I practice. And then so that was that knit along. That was my adventure knit along. I intend to do another adventure knit along, but I haven't.
That's Palm Canyon. That's me
I
figuring out
I really like it. I
the
think I know
shaping
what's
of Palm
happening on
Canyon.
this one. I think I'm picking up what you're laying down this time. But I'll do it again. I just haven't decided.
That's
But
wild.
then I did a Instagram knit along for
Oh,
Modcast.
God.
So an Instagram knit along is, again, I put the instructions. This is Modcast. I put the instructions in Instagram and they're free. So you can buy it from me. It's $8. Or
Is that going? Is that
it's on there
going
right
on
now.
now? Oh
Yeah,
my God.
because it's Instagram. I'm not going back to take it. If you feel strongly enough to scroll all the way down there and follow the instructions like that, then I want you to have it. And so
You've worked for it.
yeah, if you're willing to do the work. So I did, these are your yarn requirements. These are the needle sizes. I put everything on Instagram, one post at a time. So instruction number 1, left cuff. Here it is in Instagram. Instruction number 2, left upper arm. Here it is.
God.
And people knit it again.
Oh my God.
It was so fun.
That is
They knit it.
Wild.
They posted their work. Some people did just go buy it. Plenty of people just went to Ravelry or Etsy and just bought the pattern. But some people were like, I'm in for the free pattern. And I was like, let's do it. So I typed it in there and when you hear it, it sounds wild. I understand.
It is.
People thought like, what? But
I've never heard of anyone doing this.
I'm glad because I felt very clever.
I think you invented that.
I love it.
Susie's saying, I love your graffiti hat. Is that the yellow one?
No, that's golden hat. This is graffiti.
Oh, I love the yellow one. Oh yeah, no, that one. I know that one.
Yeah, this is the one that I just released.
Oh, I also love Cupcake. Is that a lateral braid on Cupcake? Sorry, now we're just
Cupcake is
like
actually crocheted. I asked the designer, I was like, hey, I don't crochet, but I really love this hat. And she said, I'll send you a sample.
Oh, that's so nice.
It was super nice. And I love it so much. But yeah, I cannot crochet. I can crochet a flat square and a flat circle. That's what I use for my face pads. That is the extent of my crochet.
I'm a dilettante. I did one crochet sweater. But I think oh God, I really do have to go to work because I just saw that my illustrator just sent me another crop of illustrations I have to proof. We're in that book phase where like all the illustrations are coming in now. But I always tell knitters to learn crochet because the thing about crochet and knitwear designers too, the thing about crochet is knitting's a 2-dimensional fabric and crochet is a 3-dimensional fabric, and crochet therefore solves problems in a way with shaping in a way that knitting doesn't. And a lot of my tricks are stolen from crochet concepts. So I have a trick of why I can pick up stitches around a V-neck and have it not pucker. I have a buttonhole trick. I have all sorts of tricks that come from fixing a bind off that comes from concepts of crochet.
I think that's a really good point. I definitely have had part of why I crochet my face pads and washcloths is because crochet was beautiful and flat and it had a nice little texture to it, where knitting is very distinctly flat on one side, smooth on one side and bumpy on the other, and it curls all to hell. So yeah, no, I think you're right about crochet. Just understanding some concepts of it are really important because it brings some thought process to the table that you wouldn't have, because like with crocheting, you're kind of thinking one stitch at a time, whereas with knitting, you're thinking of all 300 body stitches at a time. And you got to commit at the beginning of that round.
And it's so funny because I always say, like when someone says, which is harder, knit or crochet? And I say, whichever one you learned second, that's what's harder. Because every knitter who learns how to knit first and then tries to learn crochet says, oh my God, crochet is so hard. But every crocheter says, oh my God, knitting's so hard. So the answer is whatever you learn second. But crocheters always point out that, oh, knitting, you have all the stitches on the needle. So it's so hard. When you make a mistake, you got to rip out this whole thing. A knitter says of crochet, oh my God, crochet is so hard. You're just hanging there by a bitty thread. You just got one stitch on your hook at any time. It feels like you're falling off a cliff. So
I also can't see it. So with crochet, I feel like you gotta go with instinct and hope for the best to see what it's gonna look like. With a crocheted sweater, because it's one stitch at a time, you got to do a lot before you have something to see. With knitting, either if you're knitting it like in the round, it looks like what you're knitting by an inch or so into the process. So I feel like I can see where knitting is going in a way that with crochet, I just have to believe. I just got to trust.
You should check out Tunisian crochet, which is like crochet and knitting had a baby.
I've heard good things about it. I definitely will.
Super cool. It is.
Yes, cool. I did do this while I was teaching. Yes, I did both of those knit-alongs while I was teaching. Yes.
Yeah, because that was up till like 20 seconds ago.
Yes. Yes.
So, that was everything except for the newest thing, basically, is while you were teaching. God, I don't know how you, I never understood how my sister-in-law had the bandwidth to do anything. I mean, you're raising actual humans in your house, which is.
It's true.
I don't know how you.
They're wonderful. They're wonderful.
But
they're ridiculous and loud and busy, and they are artists and they're avid readers and they love music. And
they're awesome, but don't pretend it's not work.
Oh no, for sure. I think that this, by being a teacher, prepared me in a way for this that I think a lot of parents don't get the benefit of. I have a master's of education for middle child education. So this is the thing that I actually know how to do.
Oh my God.
And it's for math and science. So I'm literally trained to do this job.
It's so interesting. Have you noticed how many, and by the way, I'm not one of them, but how many people come into knitting from math and science? It's a lot.
It is an interestingly large number.
Uh-huh.
I have interacted with a few people that I'm like, oh, hey, really? Yeah. That's cool.
And computer programming experience, and math, like Amy Herzog and Shirley Payton, they both have a math background. And, because it's so much math.
It is so much math, but that's another reason that when you're asking designers to have 14 sizes done super well, it's that's a lot of math, y'all. That's not that. And if you don't know how to use technology, that's a lot of math by hand. It's a lot. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just, I just want to give respect to the people who are doing the work well, because it is definitely work. Yeah, I'm not picking up another, I see Tunisia Crochet is mentioned the second time. I'm not picking up another craft. My next craft is going to be quilting. And I don't have the space currently.
Oh, that's too hard for me. Sewing, I think that's because the ERA failed. I'm older than you, so this is before your time. But my mother never taught us how to sew, even though she's an excellent sewer. But I think so much of it was such an emotional reaction to ERA not passing. She was like, I'm not teaching you. And she had a panic attack when I got an A in high school in my typing class, because she said, don't tell anyone you know how to type. You'll never get out of the secretarial pool. So she was just convinced, if I was good at any, female arts, like cooking and sewing, then I wouldn't ever be anything else.
I took home ec in high school.
I never learned how to sew.
My mom sewed I had 1 year of private school and I had to wear a uniform, which was as horrible as you all can imagine. this person wearing the same thing every day for weeks on end. It went as you expected. Anyway, so my mom made a lot of my uniforms. So I would see her sew and that kind of thing. And then I took home ec and I actually learned how to like cut out a pattern and, you know, sew a pattern. I think that's part of why I understand how clothes should look, is because I've used a paper pattern before and I've seen how the pattern changes. So I think I have an understanding of how clothes are supposed to fit in a different way than if you haven't done that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I hand sew. So like, you know, when I have to hem something, I hem it by hand. When I have to take in a pair of pants, I do that by hand. So I would love to be able to pull out my sewing machine and set it up so that I can actually just use it instead of my hands.
Oh my God. Okay. We have now broken the record for the longest of any of my YouTube lives. I think Kate Atherley came close. As I was like an hour and a half because we were like so into the conversation about money and yarn substitution and all this stuff. But I think we've now broken a record because it's an hour and 48 minutes. And
did we even cover all the things you wanted to cover?
I never even know. See, you're so organized. You like have a topic. I never have a topic. I'm just like, oh, this person seems cool. I want to talk to them. And then I'm lonely by myself in a house. It's that, you know, in a couple of weeks, I'm going out on the road for the first time. I'm really nervous to teach. Like Affinity is my retreat. And I had that in person last September. And that was the first time I was in a room with other humans, but it was my retreat. So I taught like a little demo thing, but I wasn't teaching. I'm about to go to Red Alder and teaching a full docket. And that's the first time I've been, you know, 6 hours a day teaching 4 days, you know, for 4 days. And then I'm going to Magpie retreats and then, you know, Vogue in Seattle. And I'm like going out on the road again. And I'm stressed about being in a classroom again in person.
Yeah. About the pandemonium. It's still going.
Well, and also being out of practice and, you know, like all my timings have now been for 2 hours for the virtual classes. So it's, you know, handling 40 little boxes online is different than 30 people in a classroom. I don't know. I'm freaked out about all of it. So I have no social skills anymore.
It's understandable. You got this. It's gonna be good. They will extend you grace. Just get in there and say, listen, friends, it's been a minute since I've done this. Please be kind to me.
I am. I'm going to be honest up front. I'm going to say I'm worried about my voice maintaining. I never lie to my students. If someone asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I always say I don't know. It's important to never lie. You know, I don't know everything.
Same thing with kids. Well, if you decide there's more that you meant to talk to me about that you haven't talked to me about yet, then just put me back on the schedule. I'll just come back and we'll talk again.
I was going to say, if I would do an Insta with you at any time you felt like, if you ever chat with other people, I would chat with you on your Insta.
Oh, thanks. No, I haven't gone to that yet. I've heard some cool stuff. I've done some where I
forgot how to do it. I forgot technically how to do it. There's like a thing you have to do.
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. I will be able to tell you. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. We'll do some, we'll kick around some ideas, but yeah, if you want me to come back.
I would split screen with you anytime, baby.
You too.
Well, thank you so much. And thank to all of you folks. And I used to say, we used to have a goodbye that has evolved over the years. It began, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic of wash your hands, don't touch your face, knit on. Then it became wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear your mask, knit on. Then we let go of don't touch your face because that wasn't a thing. And then it became, you know, vaccinated, knit on. And then, and knit, that's how the live changed its name from Quarantine Live to knit on. Oh my, I can't believe you just asked that, Linda. Linda, you freaky little mind reader. Linda just asked about a guest that I had actually just asked to do live with me. That's so weird. Oh my God, Linda, that's really weird. Anyway, so now we just wish each other to go out into the world and stay safe and healthy and sane, and embrace the things you need to embrace, because sometimes we're depressed. That's okay, because we've just gone through a lot.
We've gone through and we are going through a lot. I would just add, be kind to yourself, be kind to other people, extend yourself the grace of not feeling normal, because this isn't normal. It's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes. We just got to keep trying and keep coming back to the table, and, really being kind to yourself and to each other will take you a long way.
Yep. And I would add, let's not go back to normal. Let's go back to better.
Right. You learned some good lessons during this time. You're still learning some good lessons, and I encourage people to hang on to them.
Well, thank you so much. And thank all of you guys for always showing up. And I can't believe all my regulars, I can't believe y'all hung with us for nearly 2 hours. Oh, and
thank you so much.
Anne said that, does that say TV? Oh, no, it says TY. Never mind. That stands for thank you. I thought she was saying we should have Patty and Fatima TV, but that's not what she said at all. She said TY. Thank you.
She didn't know that it was on the table. We have plenty of things we did not cover yet, friends. Thank you so much, Patty.
Lifetime. Thanks, you guys. I'll see y'all later.